Hi guys, it is Driven Fitness Erica here, your friendly and fabulous Orange County personal trainer. Welcome to my Wednesday Facebook Live sessions. It is Wednesday, I think it's January 11th. I'm not sure, it's been a little crazy this week here at the club. But as always, I come to you on Wednesday afternoons for just about 15 minutes or so to talk all about things health and fitness. Hello, Dina. There's someone else that popped in, Julie. So welcome to my weekly session. While we're waiting a few minutes to see if anybody else can pop in today, I thought I would talk a little bit about my adventures hiking over the weekend. So over the weekend, I was in Palm Springs for my birthday, which was super fun. I just unplugged my computer, so hold on. Super relaxing, so awesome, and I took the Palm Springs tram for the first time, and I don't know, maybe you can give me a little thumbs up if you've taken the tram before. I have never taken it, and it was so cool. So it starts down at the base in Palm Springs, at the base of the mountains, and it's a 10-minute ride on this enormous tram up to the top of the mountain. And there's all kinds of stuff that you can do up there. They have like 2 theaters and a museum. Hey, Stephanie. Welcome to my Facebook Live session. We're just waiting to see if anybody else comes on. So I'm talking about my hiking adventure over the weekend in Palm Springs. So the tram takes you to the top. There's some easier hikes and there's some more moderate hikes, and then there's a difficult hike you can do all the way up to the San Jacinto Peak, and that's what we started to do, but the weather was not so good. And it's so amazing to start at the base, which is like 70 degrees, and then to go all the way up to the mountains. The peak in San Jacinto is like 10,800 feet, so it was like 30 something degrees. It was freezing cold. And we were dressed well, but it was hard and it was cold. So in the summertime, if you're ever out in Palm Springs or you want a really cool field trip, I suggest the tram and then some hiking up around the mountain area there. It was really fun, totally awesome. So, and if you do some of the more grueling hikes, it's not that crowded. So another option there for you. I always like to share my adventures. So Palm Springs Tramway. Hey Susie, hey Christy, welcome. We have some new people, awesome. Okay, so today I've got my notes. I need to get my other notes. We are going to talk for just about 15 minutes or so. I like to keep these quick, about clean eating and what it is and how the heck you do it. So many of you in this group know, some of you might not know if you're newer to our OC Fitness Friends group, that we started a clean eating challenge this month, which we still have space in. It's free, and you're welcome to come join us. It's going all month long. We're doing 30 days of clean eating. So I thought maybe some people who either aren't sure what clean eating is, so they didn't join, or maybe they did join and they're still not really sure what to do. I thought we would maybe talk about that a little bit more today. So I don't typically, I'm a trainer. I am not a nutritionist or a dietitian, so I don't typically recommend specific diets. But I do recommend clean eating to my clients just on a regular basis, and so we're going to talk a little bit about what exactly that means, okay? And if you guys have any questions, just type them in whenever that question comes up, because it takes a few minutes for it to show on my screen. So I want to make sure I get any questions that you have. So why don't you give me a quick little like or a thumbs up if you're either doing the challenge that we have going on right now in the group, or if you've done clean eating in the past. I know a couple of you are in it, so even if you're not thumbs upping, I know that you're in the challenge. Okay, we got a couple of thumbs ups. Okay, so basically, what is clean eating? For the most part, it just means sticking to unprocessed foods, fresh fruits and vegetables, lean meats, and whole grains. So the whole premise behind clean eating is that you are avoiding added sugars, preservatives, chemicals, pesticides. You are avoiding a lot of times alcohol, white flours. You might be avoiding caffeine. Sometimes even like gluten and dairy, depending, but in general, clean eating just means non-processed whole foods that are avoiding pesticides and chemicals, added sugars, white flour, and sometimes caffeine. So, you know, pretty broad rules. What does that include? So basically you're talking about stuff that's not in packages, right? I've been getting a lot of questions about, like, if I have a package of, you know, crackers and it has this ingredients, is that okay? Or if I have this package of bread, is this okay? And the majority of the time my answer is, if it's in a package, it's generally not on your clean eating guidelines, because what we're trying to do is get you to go back to eating as close to the source of the food as possible. You know, so like, for example, rice. Rice is a great grain to eat on a clean eating diet. It's very close to its source. It comes from the ground, you put it in the pot, and that's it. Minimally processed. Then you get something like a rice cake or a rice cracker. They have to add more things. It's more highly processed. So in your clean eating world, you would want to choose a rice over the rice cracker. Now, if you were then to go further between like a rice cracker and a Ritz cracker, which probably has even more fake ingredients, more ingredients you can't pronounce, added sugars, white flour, then you would choose the rice cracker over the Ritz cracker, right? So it's kind of this spectrum, and we want to keep you as close to the whole food original source as possible. So that in a nutshell is what clean eating is. Avoiding pesticides and chemicals. So in general, that means that during your clean eating diet, you want to be trying to get mostly organic foods or pesticide-free foods. For a lot of people, that can be costly, or, hey, Joan, or not easy to get organic foods. So if you're abiding by that particular rule in the clean eating world, then what I would suggest is, if you need to just choose between some organic foods and non-organic foods, then I use the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 15. You can look them up both online, and I think there's an app for both of them, and it will list the Dirty Dozen, the 12 foods that are most highly pesticided. So those are the ones that you definitely want to get organic whenever you can. Hey, Leslie. So like, for example, berries, strawberries are very highly pesticided. So is coffee. So if you want to choose which things you want to get organic and not, look at that Dirty Dozen, stick to those that you want to get pesticide free, and then the Clean 15 are like the fruits and veggies that generally are okay. Things like bananas that have a big peel, so pesticides aren't going to necessarily get into the fruit. So clean eating, pesticide free. If you want to pick and choose, use the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 as your guide. We talked about unprocessed foods. Fresh fruits and vegetables, obviously, as many as you want. Whole grains. So I've been getting a lot of questions about what kind of things you should be eating on a clean eating diet, especially whole grains, because I talked about this in our group yesterday. Clean eating doesn't mean low carb, right? So I just got a phone call. Okay, you're still there. So they think, oh, I can't have carbs. That's not true. Number one, you get carbs from fruits and vegetables. Number two, it's just that added white flour, added sugar, breads, pastas, that kind of stuff that you want to be avoiding. The kind of grains that you want to be experimenting with are things like oats, things you may never have heard of, farro, amaranth, buckwheat, barley. All of these are whole grains that you can get in their raw form and use interchangeably to give you those carbs. And a lot of them have protein and other vitamins and minerals as well. So corn's another good one. That's not a grain, but it is starchy. Corn's a good way to get carbs. All kinds of potatoes and rice. So these are all ways that you can get your carbs in that are healthy, that's still sticking to those clean eating rules. Does everyone get that? Hey, Julie. I'm sorry, my phone is going crazy. Okay. So if anyone has questions about whole grains and what you should be eating on a clean eating diet, then go ahead and punch those questions in now. Otherwise, give me a little thumbs up if that makes sense to you. Whole grains, potatoes, all kinds of rice. Black rice is one of my favorite rices, by the way. If you've never had black rice, if you can find it, it is so good, really nutty, has a much richer flavor than regular rice. And I also cook almost all of my rices and things in chicken stock or beef stock or vegetable stock, not water, because it gives it more flavor. So just a little tip. Also, if you're looking for some of these unusual grains, if you live in Orange County and you're close to Mission Viejo, you can find almost all of them at Mission Ranch Market on Los Alisos, and then also a lot of times at Sprouts in the bulk section, and probably Whole Foods, I would imagine, but I get them for the cheapest at Mission Ranch Market. Okay, other foods that you should be eating on the clean eating diet. Things like nuts and seeds, eggs, fish and other meats. Other ways to get protein, things like quinoa, beans and lentils. You can also get protein from hemp, chia seeds, and something called spirulina, which is a plant source. It comes in a powder and you can add it to things. Hi, Cassandra. So, you know, if you have trouble getting your proteins on a clean eating diet, then especially if you're a vegetarian or vegan, then things like quinoa, spirulina, nuts and seeds, beans, lentils. From a dairy perspective, if you want to get cottage cheese or Greek yogurt, those are also good protein sources. Not Yoplait yogurt, okay? Yogurt is one of those tricky ones that people think is healthy and it's not, because it has tons of added sugar. So if you go to the store and you look for a yogurt, you got to turn around on the back of the label and see what is listed as its ingredients. If it has sugar listed, corn syrup, any of those, agave, honey, those are all words for sugar. That's added sugar and you don't want that. That is not on the clean eating rules. But if it's a Greek yogurt and it doesn't have any added sugar, but it has somewhere from like 10 to 14 grams, that's natural milk sugar, and that's okay. That comes from the dairy portion of the yogurt. So you gotta look at labels when you're dealing with clean eating. So we went over the carbs that you should be eating, proteins that you can be eating, and then the next thing we're gonna talk a little bit more about is sugars. So clean eating in general means you do not want to have added sugars, okay? So this is a Cliff Bar. This is not on the whole food eating, clean eating plan, because if you look at the back, you have to start looking at labels. The very first ingredient is organic brown rice syrup. That's sugar. Then you got rolled oats, which are a good source of carbs for clean eating. Then you've got cane syrup, more sugar. Okay, so this has 19 grams of sugar, and it's all added. So this is not a good choice. This needs to go in the trash. Some of the bars that I like, if you do like bars, are Lara bars or RX bars. They also have sugar, but most of their sugar is coming from dates. It's a natural sugar. It's not added, okay? So you just got to start learning all these secret words for things like sugar, all the secret words for preservatives. So if you start looking at the back of a label and it has stuff either you don't recognize or you cannot pronounce, then it's probably not on the clean eating plan. All right, thumbs up if that makes sense. Any questions about the things that you should be eating or ideas for eating different food groups? So you got your healthy carbs, protein sources, and then sugars. Things that you should avoid: soda and other sugary drinks, fast food, fried foods, white bread, pasta. It says rice, but I think that rice is fine, especially if you are an athlete and you need to get your carbs in. Work on your rice, even if it's white. You know, it's a better carb than like bready cakes and things like that. Foods with added preservatives, dried fruits. And the reason, does anyone know why you want to avoid dried fruits? It's because of the sugar content. And it's not necessarily that they add sugar, even though a lot of times they do coat them in sugar. It's just that, you know, if you have a dried apricot, you're getting like this much of apricot, and all of that sugar is concentrated in that little bit, versus a whole one where you're also getting more fiber, more filling calories than that little tiny apricot, and you end up eating a lot more of the little dried apricots and getting a lot more sugar zapped into your system all at once. So even if though it's natural, you're just getting a huge amount of sugar at once, and we're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in the diet. The other things you want to avoid are anything labeled reduced fat or low fat, and I'm going to say even mostly gluten-free, because once they take out the gluten or they take out the fat, they have to usually put in more salt, more sugar, or more something else to make it taste good. So we just want to avoid packaged products. You want to start cooking with real food. You also want to avoid chips, juice, candy bars, and cereal. Okay, so if you're going to have cereal in the morning, it's like oatmeal, quinoa, grits. I actually have that in the morning pretty regularly. So those natural hot cereals. We went through all those different kinds of foods to eat, what to avoid, and now I'm going to move on to how the heck do you do it. So this is the part that most people don't like to hear. It's not complicated, but it takes time, right? So most people struggle with the fact that they have to start meal prepping and thinking in advance, and that they have to start cooking at home. So really, it's a time management issue, an energy management issue, and a planning management issue, right? So people fail, I think, at diets because you go onto a diet so that then you can go off a diet, right? Like, we're just really good at going off of diets. You have to start looking at it as a lifestyle and start owning the identity of, you know, I am a person that eats like this. I am a person that spends 2 hours a week with food prep. I am the kind of person that doesn't eat out more than once a week. I cook in. And it has to start becoming your identity. If it just is something that you do for a diet for a little while, it's not going to work on the long term. And really, it's got to be a whole life change and a long-term commitment to just the way that you live your life and spend your time. So what I suggest is that you start looking at recipes, you start looking at YouTube, maybe take a cooking class, whatever you can do to become comfortable in the kitchen and start understanding what some of these foods are. Like, some of them you might not have even heard of and you have no clue what to do with them, right? So it's just learning to be more comfortable. Susie says, own the identity. That's what I want. Yes, Susie. And you know what? It just takes time. But as you practice it and practice it and practice it, eventually it will become just who you are. We've talked about that in the past, where it's like the first time you do food prep, it might take 4 hours and it's really going to suck. Well, the second time you do food prep, maybe it'll only take 3.5 hours. And the 8th month that you're doing food prep, you know what? You're going to be a pro. It's just going to be something that you and your family does, and it might not take that long because you're going to have a system and you're going to already know what works and doesn't work. So I think that what you have to do is be patient with learning how to eat well. You have to be patient with learning how to prep your meal. Phone is going off today, guys. Sorry. Can you hear that ring every time it rings? It's New Year's resolution time. So in the fitness world, my life is crazy right now, which is awesome. But sorry, I've never had so many phone calls during my Facebook Live. So it's learning how to just be patient, think outside the box, start being creative, and have the courage to work with ingredients that maybe you've never heard from, and understand that it's going to be hard for a little while. It's going to be inconvenient, and you might fall off the wagon at first, right? So we teach this Moms Club here at Driven Fitness. So every Tuesday and Thursday, 9 a.m., it's a little plug for Moms Club. If you have your little ones, you can bring them to class. And I watch these little kids, 2 years old, and they run across the room and they just fall down and eat it. And what does everyone say? Oh, you're fine, cool, get back up. You're good, get back up. But as adults, what do? We go on a diet, or we start eating healthy, and then we have like one mishap, or we fall off the wagon once and we go like, I can't do this. This is way too hard. Forget it. I'm going back to eating how I used to eat. But we would never tell our kids that. So it's like you got to shift your thinking into being more persistent and knowing that, you know what? Sometimes you're going to mess up. I have this Cliff Bar in my bag, and I've already eaten these all week because it just happens to be what I have, and I haven't had a chance to get to the store to make my own. But you know what? It doesn't mean I'm going to eat like crap the rest of the day, right? So you have to do the best that you can, acknowledge that you're going to mess up sometimes, and that's all right. Just the next day, it's a new day. The next hour is a new hour. Get back on the wagon, start again. That was my soapbox for the day. Okay, so a couple other things. Does anybody else have any questions? If all this sounds good and you think like this is something maybe you can keep doing, give us another thumbs up. Hey Nancy, welcome. Okay, so a few other things. Clean eating commandments, I got this offline, is along with everything else we've talked about, eating breakfast every day. Making sure that you eat a protein, a carb, and I'm going to say also a healthy fat at every meal. You want to combine all those three things. Healthy fats include things like avocados, olive oil, nut butters, although you have to just watch the serving size, avocado oil, any of those good, coconut oil, those are all healthy fats. The next one, number 5, is eat sufficient healthy fats every day. Another thing is depend on fresh fruits and vegetables for your fiber, your vitamins, nutrients, and enzymes. Make sure you're drinking half of your body weight in ounces of water every day. And adhere to proper portion sizes, which you will probably notice that if you are truly doing clean eating, you don't have to worry about portions as much because it's really hard to eat too much good stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it fills you up, you should feel satisfied, so you might not have to worry about calories and portions as much as when you're eating Doritos out of a bag. Because if you're filling up on broccoli and almonds, well, you know, it's a little bit harder to go over your allotment of, you know, bad stuff for the day. And that's it. All right. I feel like this was a long one, but hopefully you got a lot of information. If you tuned in late, please go back and watch the replay later. Again, we are doing the Clean Eating Challenge. It's in a separate event, so if you're interested in joining, please just comment below and I can send you the link to the group. Remember that we're eating healthy proteins, whole grains, fruits and vegetables primarily. We are avoiding the alcohol. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to say is with this Clean Eating Challenge and anything in life, you know, it's like, I usually say go by the 80-20 rule, right? So along with knowing you'll fall off the wagon, try to live it 80% of the time. If you are a clean eater 80% of the time, then if you go to a party over the weekend and maybe you're not as good and you have a glass of wine and some food that's not great, then that's okay. If you're only good 20% of the time and you're bad 80% of the time, that's a problem. So, you know, I don't subscribe to that being perfect all the time. It's just not realistic. So strive for the 80%. All right. If you liked this group, I hope that, Joan says, boo to no alcohol. Oh, you can handle it for a month. I'm pretty sure you can. You can do it. 3 together were carb, protein, and healthy fat. Yes, Susie. So you should eat together a carb and a protein and a healthy fat. The reason why you eat them all 3 together is because it keeps you satiated longer. So it takes longer for all of that to then to be broken down and dispersed in your system. So say like if you just eat a carb, you might be hungry in 3 hours. But if you eat a carb, a protein, and a healthy fat together, then you might be hungry again in like 5 hours. So it's really good for blood sugars stabilization and just satiation. Oh, Dina, Joan, Dina says her mocktail is kombucha plus LaCroix in a wine glass. You have to have it in the wine glass. That's key because that's what fakes you out. Dina and I both do that. So Susie, back to carb, protein, and healthy fat. An example would be like a piece of Ezekiel bread, which is not a sprouted bread. It's different than a white bread, with an egg and some avocado. Okay, that would be a good example. Or like an apple and some peanut butter. That is a protein, a fat, and a carb all in one. So those are examples of some snacks. Yeah, the fats is important, although that's kind of a new thing. Adding fats is important, and that has been something that's been brought up more recently of adding, because You know, for so long we were going through that non-fat diet, fat's bad, but then as more research has come out in the last, 5 to 10 years, we've realized that no, fats are actually really important to what happens in your body. You need fat, and so you want to be adding those fats. You don't want to add a whole avocado, but you need a little bit, right? Okay. So if you liked this, hopefully I will see you next Wednesday around noon. I'm not sure what the topic is going to be yet, but I will announce it probably on Monday. And please share the group with your friends because we're trying to grow it. We're up to like a little over 100 people, but we want like 1 million people. So please share it. And if you have any more questions, put your comments in below, and we will see you next week.